I don't know about you, but I didn't bother watching Season 3 of Netflix's The Witcher, but I'm aware that it came and went with just a whimper. Season 4 is uncertain, and that's probably how it should stay, forever. The first season of the show was average at best, with nothing beyond a few promising ideas, but the second season was, for want of a better word, shit, and frankly it made me lose all hope. But this isn't a video about that. As tempting as it is to vent frustrations about how the show got it so badly wrong, I'd much rather focus on celebrating what made The Witcher good in the first place, the books and especially the games. Replaying The Witcher 3 again recently made me forget all about the TV show, and I'm going to talk for a while, at length, exclusively about why I think it's still the greatest video game ever made. Obviously these are just my personal views, feel free to let me know how I'm right or wrong in the comments, but if like me you needed some catharsis from Netflix's butchering of Blaviken, then join me as we once again enter the continent to escape the Wild Hunt. Just walking through The Witcher 3's massive open world of the continent is a detailed, immersive and visually impressive experience, but I'm talking more than just sunrises and sunsets here. This isn't just one of those shiny exteriors with no substance underneath. Cyberpunk 2077. The world of The Witcher is dense, alive and feels like a real place. I'm always amazed at the sheer amount of content crammed into its 4 or 5 different regions. I've played a lot of open world games, RPGs are one of my favourite genres, and sooner or later most games suffer from a bit of emptiness eventually, parts of the map where not a lot goes on, or it isn't quite as busy. But The Witcher's universe never really feels like that, at least in my opinion. I lose track of the amount of times a yellow marker pops up while walking around as someone shouts for help. You could argue that a lot of points of interest are duplicated, but what open world RPG doesn't have a bit of that? There's still plenty of unique and individual buildings to be looted, monster contracts to be taken on, potions, landmarks, Witcher gear, horse races, whale watching. Even in those areas where you're well off the beaten track, there'll be people hunting in the woods just going about their daily business. There might be merchants wandering randomly up and down the roads.
Hey there!
Even Geralt muttering to himself about the weather as he walks around helps prolong that suspension of disbelief, so that you remain fully immersed in the world. But one of the best things about this is how it's all handled, how the game effortlessly blends so much density of content together. You can go from one activity to the next seamlessly without the need for too much fast travel, for example. I genuinely rarely fast travel in this game, unless I need to jump between the different regions, obviously. One of the best areas are the big bustling cities like Novigrad and Oxenfurt, which also feel like real living and breathing places, with a population that seems to actually be going about doing things. People go out to work in the morning, and at night they're either asleep or stumbling around drunk near taverns. It's such a contrast to the lifeless, soulless husk of Night City and Cyberpunk, which constantly breaks immersion with its emptiness, cars and people just on set scripted paths. But the world of The Witcher really wouldn't be complete without the characters.
Well, well. Never thought I'd live to see the day. Dandelion living in monogamy.
I've always been monogamous.
Oh, my help. Very interesting. Do tell.
Wild Hunt's gonna attack Kaer Morhen soon.
The Wild Hunt? Don't tell me you believe that nonsense.
The Witcher 3 holds a brilliant roster of unique characters all performed well by a talented voice cast. Despite what I just said about the world being so dense, I do get a strange sense of loneliness once most of the quest lines are done and you can no longer get stuck into clever, funny or deep conversations with everyone. It's not just the obvious, quirky nature of all the different characters that makes them interesting, it's the underlying humanity that sits behind a lot of their interactions with one another. That's what really brings them to life. It could be Geralt bickering with Yennefer, or reminiscing about old times with Vesemir, or trading blows with Dijkstra. Even Geralt replying to people with dry sarcasm with things like,
Never took you for a poet.
Oh, but I am one. Want to hear a limerick?
Sure,
Lambert, Lambert, what a prick.
not bad.
and let's not forget possibly the greatest quest ever put into an RPG.
Now that's a kick in the liver. What is it?
The Gauntlet. Equal parts spirit and white gull. What's that look about? Yen's gone to bed. Time for some serious drinking.
Damn straight.
This is a job for Vesemir.
Not again. Take that hat off.
Eskel, you drunk! Get out here!
Spilled some wine and crawled through it.
Had to kneel down to see that.
If I'd have bent over, I'd have puked.
Get up. Time to have a drink.
Leave me alone. I'm gonna puke. Three of us get together, always ends like this.
Let's find a fourth. Better. A woman.
Fuck yeah! Summon the bitches!
I know. Yennefer's clothes. Let's dress up.
What's this thing you got for dressing up?
Stop whining, Eskel. Times you gotta squeeze into some
Frippery.
Now, I'll do the talking. You two fiddle with the crystals. Kedmil bloodedwa. Hocus pocus abracadabra arsplatha.
I trust you have an explanation for this. A very good one. Go to bed. Now.
This quest always brings a huge smile to my face. In fact, the only time since that a game has ever made me laugh out loud with its true-to-life drunken silliness is the questline between Henry and Father Godwin in Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Where the fuck am I?
But of course, there are some very poignant moments too. Moments with Ciri or Triss that can range from heartwarming to tragic and sad. A lot of it depends on the choices you make, obviously, and you can always replay the game to get different endings for characters. But the fact that the game makes me feel guilty for making some of my choices is testament to the overall quality of writing, which to be fair puts most modern TV shows and films to shame. Any game that is one step ahead of you and catches you out if you try to hook up with both of the love interests rather than just sticking with one is a win in my book. Yep, I fell into that trap and no, I'm not particularly proud of it, but the fact that the game punishes you for doing it is genius. I'm a big fan of both Yennefer and Triss, so I do struggle to make those choices. Over time I've come to think that the more natural outcome is for Geralt to end up settling down with Yennefer, especially given the side quest where the whole last wish thing goes full circle. That's just my personal preference though. I'm sure this will open up all kinds of debates and contradictions, and that's fine. Maybe let me know in the comments which ending is your go-to. Speaking of endings, I do have to mention that there are a couple of dud quests here and there throughout The Witcher 3, and a few things that don't really click. Being suddenly forced to side with Roche or Dijkstra after the assassination of King Radovid, for example, was way too sudden, and I can't help but think this was a pretty rushed part of the game. The world doesn't really change in an obvious way afterwards either. The fact that NPCs still say "Long live Radovid" after he's died is a bit of a blunder, considering how well NPCs react to other things you get up to. You'll often hear them discussing random other quests that you've done, so it's a little bit strange that the developers wouldn't have done that for a big event like the assassination of a king. Whatever, maybe now I'm just being a little bit too nitpicky. What about the actual gameplay? Well, fortunately with the next-gen update, playing The Witcher 3 has never been more intuitive. Quick sign casting and applying oils from a pop-up menu in a pinch makes combat flow a lot better than it used to, and the new camera angle helped bring you even further into the gory carnage. The combat itself gets the job done, it's pretty basic, but you can make it significantly more interesting by utilising all of the mechanics rather than just relying on swords and signs alone. There are a few frustrating things about other gameplay. Geralt just loves to repeatedly slide down even the slightest gradient, making climbing a real pain in the ass unless you're using the exact path that was intended. I do think that there were too many repeated points of interest as well, especially in Skellige. Sometimes it does feel like it was just there for padding. Underwater combat is a nice touch for the first couple of enemies you shoot, but afterwards it just becomes a real chore. Something I never get bored of though is crafting and alchemy. This is a feature of many open-world RPGs, of course, but I always get stuck into it in The Witcher because of how detailed the mechanics are. Pretty much every item can either be used to build something new or dismantled into more useful crafting components. Especially handy is the fact that more specific types of items can be dismantled into a more generic version that you might need, for example, drowner brains into just average monster brains. What this means is that if you take your time to actually learn the system and develop a general understanding of the different raw materials that make up certain items, a lot of the time you can dismantle and build as you go, just from the junk that you've accumulated over time. You don't necessarily always need to go searching for something specific, or part with your hard-earned crowns buying a bunch of crap in a shop. Crafting components take up no inventory weight either, meaning there is really no disadvantage to lugging everything around with you, apart from an admittedly messy and fiddly inventory screen which is still frustrating to this day. The more you carry, the more cluttered it gets, and it is one of the few weak points of the game. But always in my experience, the crafting and alchemy is so fun that collecting everything really isn't going to be that much of an issue, and I don't notice it too much. Speaking of collectibles, Gwent is also an addictive part of this game. When I was growing up, trading card games in real life like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering were being banned in schools across the UK. You had to play matches or do trades in secret like it was a dodgy drug deal. But these days Gwent gives me my collectible card game fix, and I love how there's plenty of full-on side quests woven into it. Finding all the cards that are out there and finishing all your decks is not only satisfying, but it feels part of a real dynamic world blended naturally into the overall gameplay rather than just being a totally separate thing. There's really never been a better time to enjoy The Witcher 3 in my opinion. The game runs smoothly with a consistent frame rate and minimal texture pop-in when I was playing it on my Xbox Series X. I rarely came across any bugs, and even if I did, they were just the minor, goofy sort of things you expect to see in a game this size. It didn't break immersion, and they certainly didn't break any quests or crash the game. The game just feels really polished overall, and that's testament to how much work CD Projekt Red invested in it and how much they care. Like, this is quite a small thing, but I always remember thinking that it was weird that the Nilfgaardian soldier's armour never made any metallic kind of clinking noises, given how big and bulky it is. But one time I loaded the game up and they've added the sound effects in, although weirdly that seems to have disappeared from the game again. Whatever, now I really am being nitpicky. Other elements like the music are still as great as ever. It's always so satisfying starting a new game and hearing the White Orchard theme tune. The fact that it isn't on the main soundtrack is criminal. But I love how each region in the world has its own theme, even each island on Skellige. They really help to bring out the wonder and mystery of the world. The main soundtrack is also great, giving a big epic feel to all the cutscenes and story beats. So I'm not sure how much I can really say. I haven't even touched on the expansion packs, Blood and Wine and Hearts of Stone. I'm going to do that in a future video, but I can't speak highly enough of The Witcher 3. I get that not everyone likes big open world RPGs or the medieval inspired setting, but I genuinely think that most people that are into video games should be playing this at least once. If you never have, where have you been? Anyway, let me know what you think about The Witcher. What do you like or dislike about it, and what do you want to see in The Witcher 4? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications. I'm planning a lot more content in the future. For now, peace out.